Good afternoon, and for those of you that are on the West Coast, good morning. We are pleased you're here with the VIA Elders Project. We're part of the VIA family of companies. My name is Chris Erickson, and I am the Managing Director of the Elders Project. If this is your first time joining us, we're glad you're here. If you've been with us before, we're glad you're back. We work through our project to bring you the voices of leaders who have spent their careers pioneering the work of connection with others to health. Our elders are visionaries who have shaped the field, and we like to preserve their experiences, knowledge, and wisdom to increase the likely success of clients and systems. This session is being recorded. We ask that you please stay muted during the conversation. There'll be time for questions at the end. You can put your questions in the chat at any time, and I'll manage that discussion after Jim and Clarence finish their dialogue. If you've missed previous sessions, you can find them on our website at viaeldersproject.com. There is a CEU available for today. I will be sending an evaluation out after this dialogue, probably not till Monday. And if you return that and need a CEU, that'll give me the information to get that to you. So I'd like to briefly introduce to you our speakers today. Our host is Jim Clarkson. Jim is the chairperson of the VIA family of companies, of which the Elders Project is a part. Jim's career spans such areas as executive leadership in managed care to advisory roles for the nation's leading healthcare providers. Jim has led behavioral health and substance use disorder provider treatment agencies and worked as a clinician. He provides consultation and training nationally and internationally and is considered an expert by many. He founded the VIA family of companies almost 15 years ago to offer technical assistance to organizations and leaders to help shape environments to improve recovery and sustainability. Excuse me. Clarence Jordan, our distinguished elder, has more than 3 decades of experience in behavioral health and holds an MBA from the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. He has more than 20 years experience in managed care, 17 of which was spent with the Carillon Behavioral Health, where he served as clinical programs director. In this role, he provided strategic direction and leadership for the company's national wellness and recovery programs. Clarence was responsible for various initiatives to operationalize the organization's commitment to recovery-based principles in the delivery of behavioral health services. He is best recognized as a subject matter expert in peer services and peer program development. Clarence is the recipient of numerous national awards for his work in the field and contributed to several publications, including the bestseller You Are Not Alone. He has deep roots in the National Alliance on Mental Illness and has served multiple terms on its national boards. SAMHSA selected Clarence to serve as a member of a subject matter expert panel to advise them on the development of national standard guidance for the certification of peer specialists, which was released in 2023. Clarence is a former naval officer, and his recovery journey is chronicled in National Council magazine's 50 Years, 50 Stories of Recovery special issue that commemorated the 50th anniversary of the Community Mental Health Services Act. Gentlemen, welcome. Jim, I will turn the floor over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank all of you for joining us today. It's really a pleasure to have you, and really a pleasure to have Clarence. Every once in a while in our elders program, we have the opportunity to talk to absolute true trailblazers. And I had the opportunity to work with Clarence for several years at a managed care organization, and really got to see Clarence in action. And I could witness both spiritual power and spiritual empowerment in Clarence's presence. And that has just radiated across our industry. has helped animate the peer movement. And I just am delighted, Clarence, that you're here with us. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Jim. I really appreciate all those kind words, and thank you, Chris. I'm delighted to be here. As a matter- I'm extremely happy to be here, and let me apologize to everyone in advance for the scratchy throat. We're experiencing some illness here in the house, and hopefully I can get through this without fading out backwards or something. But thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it, and happy Friday to everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. One of the positive things about Zoom is it's not, I was going to say it's not contagious, but actually it can be contagious in terms of spirit and power and inspiration. And thank you for joining us, even though you're feeling under the weather, Clarence. So let me just jump in and ask some questions, and feel free to expand upon these or take them in the direction that you would like. Clearly, you have done so much in and for our field. Uh, what do you feel like were your most important contributions, achievements, things that you've participated in that have really helped shape all of our work?
Great question, Jim. I would answer that in terms of a contributor too. And as I think back on my career in this field, I would have to identify number one, the Blues Project. And let me tell you a little bit about what that is. What brought me to this area, what brought me to Memphis, Tennessee, was a story, ABC News special, and some of you may have remembered it, but it was called Babyland. It was a story about the infant mortality rate here in Memphis, Tennessee. Being the behavioral health provider for this area at the time, I was asked to come out and see what I could do to strengthen one aspect of that project, which was our peers who were assigned to this effort. A very, very impressive report on the Blues Project of Memphis can be found still on the internet. And I say that because one of the things that I want to tell you about was my experience in managed care. Data, I think, is critical to our field. It's absolutely essential, not only in terms of behavioral health and managed care, but also peer programs in general. Without it, it's almost impossible to gauge where you are or where you're going, for that matter. The other, I think, project, which I was a part of, would be the Congregational Health Network. And it was truly a testament, the Congregational Health Network was truly a testament to how various segments of our community, our population can come together and work comprehensively to bring about truly member-focused behavioral health. In this instance, the Congregational Health Network was a collaboration of what our then Commissioner of Health called our greatest strengths here in this area, that being our hospitals and our churches, our places of worship. It involved over 500 such places of worship, and one of our major hospital providers here in the area Baptist Medical Group. And the whole idea being that if places of worship is the one place you can count on people showing up or being on a regular basis, then why not provide behavioral health services through that mechanism, through that venue? And so that's in fact what we did. We trained members of the congregation, those individuals identified as liaisons. We trained them in mental health first aid to be able to identify and help support individuals in their congregation that were experiencing behavioral health challenges. Individual participants of this program received a personal ID card that they can carry with them. And the benefit to them, the individual, was that with that ID card, it gave them special entree so that whenever they went to the hospital for any reason, for regular visits or exams or tests or whatever, they had that card that they can show the people there in intake. And immediately someone would be dispatched to escort them to wherever their place wherever they needed to be to receive the services that they needed. A fabulous model, the Congregational Health Network. As a matter of fact, this was a program that was, I would say, endorsed by then President Barack Obama. The members of the Congregational Health Network, not all of them, but representatives of the Congregational Health Network met with the president there in Washington, D.C. And again, without it, without data, I would say, neither of these efforts, the Blues Project or the Congregational Health Network, would have been nearly as successful. And the one thing that I think managed care does for us on a regular basis, on an ongoing basis, is provide us with meaningful data that we need to be successful in this arena.
Interesting. Thank you, Clarence. I guess I want to ask a couple of questions, but I'll share both of them and then turn it over to you. You've really been a part of the two that you just mentioned, as well as everybody, as well as many others that I know about. And I'm curious, like, what have you seen that peers have actually brought to the table in behavioral health and how that's changed over the years? But perhaps a more important question first is, tell us about your own formative years before you tell us about the formative years of the peer movement. Your own formative years and the influences that have shaped the person that you have become, both personally and professionally, and that have shaped your work.
Yeah. Jim, I am the son of service member. My dad was in the Air Force. And while in the Air Force, we were stationed in Columbus, Mississippi. You would be hard-pressed to even find it on a map, let alone be considered one of the major cities there. But Columbus, Mississippi at the time was a little backwater place. The military base there was, I think, the major employer. And it was there, Jim, that I spent a few years in elementary school. I transferred in the third grade. And the shocking thing that I found arriving there in Columbus, Mississippi, as a third grader, was this period shortly after the bell rang to welcome everyone back to school or to school for the first time. Was that shortly after that, a week or so later, there were mass exodus of kids who left school to go pick cottons. There were trucks that came around doing cotton picking season, and kids would summarily just walk right out the front door and get on these trucks and go to the cotton fields to pick cotton. It was not only a means of making a few dollars for them, but they really felt like it was kind of their obligation to do that. I tried it once, but only once. I came home with 4 quarters in my hand after a full day in the cotton fields. And when the trucks let us out, or when we got off the trucks, there back in the neighborhood. I was greeted by my mom and dad, who had found out that I'd skipped school. And so as I approached them with these 4 quarters in my hand, my dad slapped the quarters out of my hand and told me that's not why we send you to school. But what this provided for me was clearly an understanding of how institutional discrimination works and how various organizations, businesses, and institutions like our educational system play hand in hand to award some and disempower others. There in elementary school, I witnessed kids who were having kids of their own and who indeed were old enough to have been in high school had it not been for this practice of I don't know, I can't lay plainly on the practices, but I believe that these practices truly contributed to these kids, adults, young adults in some instances, being in school for much longer than they needed and not receiving the kind of education that I believe that everyone deserves to be successful. And that early understanding of how institutional discrimination works, I think, really paved the way for me, or the understanding at least for me, of how stigma works, which in fact is the same way, more or less. You know, there is institutional stigma. There is, excuse me, there is individual stigma, which affects all of us individually. And there's public stigma, you know, that thing that we see and hear oftentimes and go, well, why are they talking about mental health in that way? And unless stigma can be addressed from all 3 levels by an organization or by an institution, we are left wanting or needing more attention to that. Behavioral health, in a sense, or health in general, in a sense, is one of those institutions that I think really serves to help perpetuate this stigma, particularly in behavioral health. And that's probably why this field of peer specialist gained such a foothold to begin with, in response to that stigma that so many recipients of care actually experienced during their treatment, manifested by the fact that you had many clinicians that viewed these patients or recipients of care in a less than kind of capacity. Fortunately enough, that has all changed for the most part. In fact, many clinicians have said to me, Clarence, peers have a way of reaching folk that I myself, as a clinician, don't have. And so I think that's a big part of the work that we do as peers. And it certainly has been a lesson learned for me. And one of the things that reinforces my desire and passion for this field to do this work, because I do believe in earnest that peer specialists are at the heart of behavioral health delivery services. And maybe even a better society when it comes to behavioral health needs in general. We just got to find a way to bring peers to the larger population.
Thank you, Clarence. Just as you were talking, I was really sensing something you were saying incredibly profoundly, and wanted to follow up on what you shared about being a third grader in Columbus, Mississippi,
Mhm.
where a large number of the kids would go and pick cotton, leave school, walk right out the door, go pick cotton.
Yeah.
And you actually did that yourself, and you came home and with the 4 quarters after a day's work, and your dad said, "Oh no, that's not why we send you to school." And I just wonder uh, how you experience that sort of dichotomy of seeing your classmates going in that direction and then coming home and your dad is saying this is not why we send you to school. And I just wonder how a third grader would sort of square with that and how it would unfold over the years.
Yeah. The immediate whiplash that comes as a result of doing that, I think kind of numbed me to what you're saying, Jim, in terms of how I came to square that, because um, being there in Columbus and seeing these kids, my classmates, in fact, do this, led me to feel like, okay, if it's okay for these kids to do it, it must be okay for me to do it too. Um, and then to have my parents, and they both met me getting off the truck, have my parents in absolutely disarray. I mean, they were fit to be tired. And I'm speaking very, very gently in terms of what that behavior on their part was. Not only did they slap those quarters out of my hand, my dad did, but he put something else on my backside for having played hooky in the first place. But the truth of the matter is that in a lot of rural communities, that's not only the expected, that's the norm. Because when I wasn't playing hooky to go out and earn 4 quarters picking cotton, school was such an experience, elementary school was such an experience that I literally just got bored, quite frankly, and found myself more oftentimes than not walking in the front door and right out the back door and out to my favorite fishing hole and spending the day fishing. And when it was time for school to let out, I would come back by the same means through the back door and out the front door to go home, and nobody was the wiser.
Wow.
It was only when my report card arrived at my house did my family have an idea or a clue what I'd been doing with all my time in school, with all those absenteeisms. My mom marched me back over to the school because I was placed on suspension as a result of my playing hooky. And I told my mom, I said, I've been suspended from school. And she walked me right back over to that school and that principal's office and say, hey, you guys have got to be doing something wrong. How do you award absenteeism with suspension? How do you give license to someone who skipped school to be out of school? Essentially, is what it amounted to. So the long and short of it is, Jim, that again, the insidious nature of institutional discrimination, I think, is just that. It's difficult to identify in many instances, and having been identified and experienced in some, awfully difficult to correct because it's more or less ingrained in the culture and in the society in which people live.
Yeah, thank you. I think you and I had a similar school curriculum when it comes to the fishing in the front and out the back. Worked out pretty well in the long run. Um, Clarence, so you've really named institutional and communal discrimination, the drivers in rural communities and other communities around poverty, around community, kids wanting to be a part of community to support their families, to do what they need to do. And you've experienced that institutional and communal discrimination in behavioral health, and oftentimes it's hard to name, and oftentimes hard to identify, but you can almost feel it in the air that agencies and funders and decision makers move in. And peers are a society that oftentimes bring a different approach, bring a different felt sense, bring a different relational aspect. And you've done that. I've seen that in you. You've done that in your life. Wonder if you would like to expand on that about how you've seen peers. You know, I know. Well, yeah, I just would be curious about how you have continued to do that over the years.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Jim. Um, Peers, in my estimation, given the definition of what a peer is, have these experiences, have these memories and recollections of the things that they went through in their recovery journey. And it's because of that, it's because of those lived and living experiences that peers are most effective. And it is the learned uh, feeling of what that is, what that journey is like, that I think makes peers as effective as they are. And it also is a reason why I think in the guidelines for state certification for peers, one of the things that's mentioned is the ability to share your story. Now, sharing one story is not, I was born by the river in a little old tent. Sharing one story happens to relate to the phases or stages we go through as we as we take that journey. Certainly for me, there was a time in my life when I didn't understand or didn't appreciate where I was in my own um, behavioral health crisis and could care less. I mean, it felt good and I continued to do it. Um, but then comes the point when you start thinking about, well, maybe the consequences of this are not so great. And it's those consequences and recollection of what those consequences are that makes peers particularly effective at that spot in one's journey that we call contemplation, because it's a easy path to either move forward or go back. And at that point, contemplation, that is, doing either one is certainly possible. I think many people see that contemplation phase as, quote, a relapse, when in fact it's all a part of the journey. It's that contemplation that people are doing and that decision people are making to either continue forward with respect to their recovery and wellness, or continue doing what they did to get them there in the first place. And so this peerness, as a lot of people refer to it as, that ability to um, recall not only that what that looked like, but what that felt like, is what makes peers particularly effective, because it's through that process that they can engage others, as clinicians say, in a way that clinicians cannot or do not. It is that peerness that allows peers to be effective with respect to encouragement and empowerment of those that they serve, where other individuals in the behavioral system can't do, because they don't have that experience. They don't have that ability to recall that which is most beneficial to the individual recipient of services.
Absolutely. I just want to just follow up again on that a little bit because you're such an expert on this. You know, you've mentioned in terms of a recipe for quality peer services, the data is absolutely essential for many reasons. You've mentioned how telling one's own story about the stages from contemplation and other stages of change, being able to share that with others, self-disclose, connect, create relationship. Clearly, you mentioned that. If we use the metaphor of a cake, what other things do you think would need to really be baked in to or are baked in to make peers so effective? And then what are the things that maybe we would need to leave out of that recipe that may not be as helpful? And one of the things that comes to my mind is, who supervises peers? In a lot of programs, it's clinicians, which is clearly, in my mind, not the that should be out, not in the cake. So I'm just curious, are there other things that you could name that you would say this has to go into this cake to have a quality program, in addition to what you've already mentioned? And then what are some of the things that we need to leave out of the cake?
Well, yeah, Jim, you hit on one of my pet peeves, peers being supervised by clinicians. Here's what happens. When a peer is supervised by a clinician, the peer typically forgets all the training, all the learning that they did when they went through whatever certification the program they had, and start mimicking behavior of the clinician. Well, these peers are not clinicians, but they feel and see that acting in that way, being concerned about the members in that way, is what robs them of their peerness and results in not only organizations being less effective, but the peer being less effective, and the members served not getting what they really need to support them in their journey. That's one of my pet peeves. The other thing that I feel very strongly about, and that is experiential learning. I believe that peers are best trained face to face in person, and trained in a way that allows them to identify the specific competencies or cluster of competency as prescribed or described by SAMHSA to get the work done. If you're engaging someone for the first time, there is a competency that supports that engagement process better than anything else, and that's the one thing that peers I think struggle with when they first enter into the workplace. In fact, engagement is no more than establishing a rapport or relationship. If you and I met for the first time on a bus traveling somewhere, and we were availing ourselves to conversations, it's a typical give and take kind of experience as we get to know one another. And that's simply what engagement is. It's not trying to find out what their individual diagnosis is or what they need, quote unquote. But it is in fact building that rapport, building a relationship. It's something that oftentimes peers struggle with because here again, they are given to believe that the best way to approach this is as a clinician would approach this. So the experiential learning that a lot of peer programs offer now, wherein individuals have an opportunity to re-experience what it was like when they were going through pre-contemplation to contemplation to planning and into action, is the thing that I think should be baked in a very, very concise way, purposeful way to peer training in general, let alone the particular area in which these peers are to operate.
Yeah, thank you so much. I remember, I think it was maybe the first time I met you, Clarence. We were both speaking at a conference in Kansas or Colorado or somewhere. And in your presentation and connecting with the audience, and certainly when as part of the audience, I was inspired by your story as you shared. And there's that part of me that just sort of lit up that said, this guy's got something that I really want, that I really admire: the authenticity, the power, the insight, the creativity. And woven in your presentation was the knowing in me of the incredibly hard work, intentional work, committed work that had to be there for you to be able to share those words so transparently. And I think in peer, in the peer movement, that piece is just so important, that people uh, model something that we can really aspire to in an authentic and transparent way. And you, to me, are a living expression of that.
Thank you, Jim. That authenticity, by the way, is one of those elements that's, excuse me, that's a part of those national practice guidelines for peer certification. The call to be authentic in your peer role. Not many people can define or even understand what peerness means, but authenticity, I think, begins to express what that is for a lot of people.
Yeah, thank you. So if you were to go back in your mind with your in your mind's eye to yourself when you were a newly graduated student moving into your career, especially the behavioral health part, if you had a message for yourself at that age, knowing what you know now, what might you say to that younger, fresh-faced Clarence, ready to tackle the world?
The first thing I would say to Clarence is, hold on, it's going to be a bumpy ride. That certainly expresses, in my opinion, from my view, what life has been to this point for me. A very bumpy ride. I received my undergraduate degree from an HBCU, historically black college, university in this instance, the Tennessee State University there in Nashville. And with all of its rich traditions, with all of its heritage as an institution, and I'm not talking about just the homecoming parades or the football games or the fraternity and sorority activities that typically go along with undergraduate studies. But much more than that is being a part of a learning institution and your ability to more or less find yourself, as I've heard many people describe being in undergraduate school. But despite that, that's not the whole of who we are as individuals. Um, my entry and participation in the Navy, I think, helped me deal with the blind spots that undergraduate degree made evident. It was being in the Navy, I think, Jim, an expression was the rock on which I sharpened my metal. It contributed to my confidence, my ability to be authentic in a sense. Um, I remember one of the presentations that I had or I received when I was in a treatment program was this individual who was in recovery, who was there as a guest speaker. And the words, as I recall, were similar to these. I know many of you are just eager to get out of here and get back to the life you knew. And for many of you, that means going back to a life of drugs and or jacking people as a way of living. Then he said, my advice to you, if you're going to have a hustle at all, is to hustle the truth. Is to hustle the truth. And I felt him looking right at me when he spoke those words, because that took me back to one of the learned beliefs that I carry today, and that is to be authentic, to tell the truth, in a way that I think benefits others, and let the chips fall where they may. I can't control outcomes, every outcome that I experience in life. I can control, however, my behavior, and to a certain degree, my thoughts. And with that, I think that that contributes to the advice, or would help me give advice to this younger me. The other thing that I would say to this person, this younger me, is that conflict is not a dirty word. It's not. Oftentimes, conflict is a result of conscientious endeavor. Matter of fact, more oftentimes than not, that's exactly what conflict is. It's a result of conscientious endeavor. I would tell myself that once I made up my mind about a thing, once I examined all the facts and had made up my mind about a thing, then it was time for me to let my heart work on it. Turn it over, give it over to my heart. Because I think there's a tremendous distance between the mind and the heart. And sometimes, oftentimes, somewhere in between, there is the answer that we're seeking, or the solution that we wish to have. So those are the things that I would say to my younger self, because those are the things certainly that I have learned up until this point in my life.
Thank you so much. So kind of shifting gears a little bit, Clarence, what concerns do you have about our field right now, and what recommendations might you have for us to address them? Certainly, we're in a challenging time in behavioral health, as you know.
Yeah, Jim, thanks to organizations like yours, which seeks innovations in behavioral health, because heaven knows that our behavioral health delivery system in this country is a mess. It really is a mess. It would take this presentation, this interview, and some more of what Chris has scheduled to go into all the things that I feel are wrong or need improvement. But speaking strictly of peers, I think the one concern that I have is that peers and their underutilization leads for a situation where peers have a very, very short tenure in behavioral health. The average tenure when I left Elevance or Carolina was about 18 months. Organizations can't sustain a delivery system with that tenure being as it is, 18 months. We barely pay for an individual coming on board and indoctrination and orientation into our organizations. If 18 months is all the return that we get. A lot of that has to do with the training they receive. A lot of that has to do with the supervision that they have. A lot of that has to contribute to the organization in general, which more or less does not value or reward, nor reward the work of peers in the way that it could be. I think in general, as long as we continue to seek results or value results of peer contribution using clinical terminology, this individual is compliant with their medication. The individual is seeing their doctors on time. Those are clinical outcomes that all service providers want and want to see. But that's not necessarily an evaluation of peer work. And I think the struggle that we find ourselves in right now is to find valid, comprehensive, conscientious values or skill sets around which to really evaluate peer work. So that's the one thing that I see as a major challenge for us. And when I say us, I'm talking about me as we continue this work in peer service delivery. And it's critical, it's crucial. Peers are not an exhaustible workforce. We're having fewer and fewer peers certified as peers. And the ones who aren't sticking around very, very long. And so the other thing that I would strongly consider, advise, and what we found as a managed care organization worked for us was to provide a career path for individuals who do this work. The VA certainly has found that works for them. Peers in the VA come to work as a GS5 or GS7, and they have an opportunity to work their way up to a GS9 or even 11 in some instances. I don't know what's beyond that. I never met a peer beyond GS12. But I would say that having an established career path for that organization is another must-have if we're to continue to do this work in an effective and efficient manner.
Absolutely. So you can tell me if I'm like way out in left field here, Clarence, but I am of the belief that there will come a time where communities will or should have crisis services in place, some level of inpatient, no, not inpatient, IOP, outpatient therapy, and peers would be really the heartbeat of a communal response to substance use disorder, mental health challenges, people who've been exploited sexually or otherwise by clergy or people in authority. I really believe in my heart that that's that helping to set up funding mechanisms that would support models like that is really what I, would like to continue to make my work all about.
I would say, Jim, that you're spot on. And I would say too that if that position that peers had was such as you described, come along with a way of identifying their value, true value in terms of outcomes that peers bring to the table. And as long as they had a viable career path such that they are not viewed as expendable workforce, then I think you're absolutely right. I mean, no other profession in our field, and I'm speaking of peers as being professional in this term, in this sense. No other professional work that we have in this field have the kind of tenure that peers have, are there without a career path. Clinicians of all descriptions and variety have career paths. Even those individuals that we employ as what we describe as community outreach specialists. That's a term given to individuals who are not clinicians, who do the work of engaging members out in the community for reasons of language or ability or disability or whatever you may. Community outreach specialists have career paths. So why not peers? Why not peers?
Yeah. You've already given so many messages and pieces of advice, but I'm wondering if there's anything else that for those of us and their peers here, or those of us either with peers on staff, or we're working to help create reimbursement systems that support the power of peers. Any other pieces of advice or recommendations you might make to us, Clarence?
An acknowledgement, first of all, Jim, during my career, and I'll take responsibility for this. During my career, when engaged with peer providers or organizations that provided peer services, the primary question that I get is how to fund their operation, or how to get a contract with Elevance or Carillon, et cetera. I wish that there were not so. Peers are peers, and I believe that very, very truly and sincerely. However, how that peer or where that peer is to deliver services really do matter. It should be the first question that we get. What are your plans to utilize peers? What's the environment like? What is the work that they are to do? I remember when we were in discussion with an airline, major airline, around wellness and recovery. Airline pilots have issues just like everybody else. And so the idea of providing wellness and recovery for airline pilots is legit, is real. And we spent months even learning about the industry that pilots work in. I wish we would take the time to learn about the other areas that we intend to employ peers. If it's with, let's say, I don't know, laboring, or factory work, or farm work, or arts and entertainment, or transportation. If it's individuals who are reintegrated in society after coming out of custody from a penal institution, or if it's individuals like myself who are now recipients of Medicare, I think there's need for learning about who these people are and what these institutions and values are before we even start talking about peers and how to pay or how to reimburse or how to define what their specific roles and duties are. We need to learn about the organization, the values, the environment before we learn anything else.
This is a great point. So I just have one more question before we just open it up for questions from the participants here. If you were to recommend one or two books that you believe all of us should read, what would they be and why?
The number one book that I would recommend is by a recovering individual, and it's called Confessions. And what Confessions is, written by Carolina Main, what Confessions is a book about the thoughts and conclusions and that we come to as a result of or being a part of a recipient of behavioral health, be that a mental illness or substance abuse. We all have thoughts that we hold on to that we don't share with anybody else. And Confessions gives an open window for us to be able to, I think, do that. I have certainly read in my read of the book some thoughts that I have had or hold on to that I probably should make public or get off my chest. There are really two, three other books that I really enjoy referencing or going back to from time to time. One is You Are Not Alone, and I think Chris may have mentioned that in the introduction. Wisdom from Peer Support Specialists and Supervisors is another book that I would recommend if you're working in this field. And for heaven's sake, if you're going to do work in this field, I would certainly recommend Pathways by William White, second edition. In it, William White talks about the culture of addiction and what that is like, and its understanding of that culture. And again, getting back to my earlier point, understanding that culture gives us insight into the kind of things we need to do to affect change and to be of benefit to the people we serve. I know there was more than two or three, Jim, but
All
I
right,
couldn't help
the
but
more the better. I
get
appreciate
those
the
in.
recommendations. So just going back to your words that you would share with your younger self, just starting off in the field, that it's going to be a bumpy ride, that it's going to be a bumpy ride. And acknowledging that we're in a place in behavioral health that it may be a bumpy ride. And indeed, in our lives, it's going to be bumpy. There's bumps. And part of authenticity is being able to be okay with the vulnerabilities,
That's right.
the challenges, the
That's right.
victories, and the what feel like losses.
Mhm.
What great advice for peers, for all of us, and for our field. So thank you so much, Clarence. It's just been a delight, and it was a pleasure for me to get to share with you this way and facilitate this discussion. And right now, I'd love to turn it over to Chris to engage with comments, questions from the participants on the call.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. It's been a real joy to have these discussions and interact with you again.
Thanks, Clarence. At the moment, I'm the only one that has a question, so I'd invite anyone else in the audience. If you've got a question, drop it into the chat, and we'll try to get to it. So, Clarence, I want to take you clear back to the beginning of this conversation. And you mentioned the Congregational Health Network.
Mm-hmm.
Who and how did you recruit congregations to participate? Faith-based services are core to my being. So, but doing that, at least in the places I have lived, has been next to impossible. So just wondering how that came about.
Chris, oftentimes in every faith, there is what we refer to as a lead dog. So getting the lead dog on board really does pay dividends for you. That is some minister or someone whom is held in the community as one of those faith leaders that everyone should listen to is how I would approach this. This is, in fact, how I approach this. I just simply asked, well, who's the big dog in this congregation, in this faith? And I went to those individuals and said to them, this is what I have, this is what I propose, and here is how I would thank you for your participation.
So did you remain coordinating that by yourself, or was there a team?
Oh, no, heavens no.
Okay.
The individual's name was Bobby Baker, who directed the Congregational Health Network. Bobby at the time was the I'm getting his title mixed up, but for the most part, Bobby was the community liaison for Baptist Medical Group.
Okay.
And it's he that had the dollars and the funding and the insight for this initiative. Worker bees like myself and others simply carried those plans out.
Fascinating. Is there any place that I can, does it still exist today?
Mhm.
Is there any place I
Congregational.
can read about it?
Yeah, certainly. If you go, you can Google Congregational Health Network of Memphis. Period.
Okay.
That would
All
give you complete history. It may even give you a little bit of the role that I played, and it was only a small role.
Okay.
I train these liaisons, these individuals who served in the churches as that contact point or peer, if you will, who help the individuals in the congregation with their medical and behavioral health needs. My
Thank you.
tool to do that was a program that I think most of us are familiar with. That is Mental Health First Aid.
Mhm. And you were teaching that in the churches, you said, correct?
Yes, teaching that to the liaisons. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Those individuals who served as that contact in those various congregations. It was a fun gig. I mean, I enjoyed being with these individuals. I think as much as I did anyone else that I interacted with. So yes.
I think that's cool. I just really think it's cool. Again, does anyone else have a question for Clarence? My chat box is silent, Clarence. Probably because you did such a good job, as Jim surmised at the end of all the things you had said of what you would say to yourself and carrying that on. I thought that was
Jim had great questions, and his delivery is fantastic.
Yeah, that's why we keep him around.
Probably a good choice.
Okay, I'm teasing, Jim. So another comment. No questions, but thank you for such an inspiring presentation. I could listen to you talk all day.
I second that.
Thank you.
All right, then, Clarence. Thank you again from the entire VIA family of companies, particularly the Elders Project. It's been a delight to have you. I hope we're in touch again soon about something, just because.
Thank you, Chris. It's been a joy and a delight seeing you again, and thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
All right. Y'all take care. Thank you for joining us today. See you next month.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy
Thank you,
Friday,
Chris and
Clarence.
Clarence. Take care, y'all.
Thank you.